Jay Greene is the principal attorney of the Greene Law Firm. He decided to pursue his passion of helping families in his legal career. Protecting families' assets helps to protect the well-being of all family members. Jay is a member of National Estate Planning and Elder Law organizations such as Medicaid Practice Network. Jay is also a member of the Birmingham Bar Association, thus his Southern accent, and a committee member of the Elder Law section. The firm also maintains current information about it, estate planning and elder law on Facebook and LinkedIn. He graduated with a bachelor's in accounting and a master's in accountancy from the University of Alabama at Birmingham. Again, like I said, we're going to go back to that Southern accent, which you guys will hear in full force shortly. While pursuing his master's, Jay passed all 4 sections of the Certified Public Accountant exam. So he's very well versed in everything. While working full-time, Jay pursued and completed his Juris Doctorate from the Cumberland School of Law, Stanford University. Jay's love for asset protection was encouraged by earning the highest grade in his estate and gift taxation class. In 2008, Jay became a member of both the Alabama and Florida bars. In 2014, Jay became a member of the California bar. So Jay was one of a select amount of attorneys chosen to participate in the inaugural mentoring class for Jefferson County lawyers. When he's not engaged in the practice of law, Jay enjoys spending time with his family and traveling. We are going to welcome our wonderful, now Californian, but former and probably will always be Southern lawyer Jay to the stage. And he'll probably laugh at my at what I had to say about his accent, but it's so nice and I love it. It reminds me of my family because my dad grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. I used to go to the South every summer. So I love hearing those Southern accents. Hi, Jay. Welcome.
Hey, Marissa. How are you doing?
I'm good. So nice to see you this morning.
Yeah, good seeing you. Good seeing you. I was a little worried that maybe with my Southern accent, I might butcher the name. Hopefully
You didn't. It was so good. I'm so happy. Thank you so much. All right. Well, is there anything that you'd like to say to us before we get started? Are you ready to rock and roll?
Well, first I want to thank you for hosting the event. It's been a great event. And I want to thank Melanie, Ann, and Tracy for the information they just gave us. It's great information, especially today as we're focused on sellers and just thinking about what we would do if we listed property. It's so good to hear from everybody. I want to thank Kelvin. I want to thank Sabina and the entire Sequoia real estate team for having us here. They definitely run a well-grounded organization that's able to get you the best purchase price for your property. So I'm glad that they're kind of done this event so that we can kind of gain their knowledge from everybody.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And listen to that. Look at his accolades before he even started. That's the charm, huh? That's that Southern charm. I love it. I love it. I missed all of that. Thank you so much for being here, Jay. So Jay, we're going to jump in then. We're ready to rock and roll. Let's do this. So how do you avoid capital gains tax when selling a primary residence?
Well, the unfortunate thing about avoiding the capital gains tax is it means making less money. So we want to maximize money. So that's probably what we want to do first is talk about kind of what our exclusions are and then how we can maximize that money. So when we're talking about our primary residence, we get exclusions because the government encourages us, wants to protect the primary residence. So they give us some exclusions for that. So if you're single, you're looking about $250,000 that would be exempt. If you're married, it's about $500,000. And in the Bay Area, $500,000 may not be enough to keep you from paying capital gains. So then kind of the next question is if you're over those thresholds, then what do we do? When we're talking about getting those dollar amounts, first we need to meet ownership and use test, meaning that you've owned the property for 2 of the last 5 years and that you've lived in the property for 2 of the past 5 years. Those don't have to be consecutive. It can be any time during that period, but we want to maximize that amount. On capital gains, what we also want to do is think about deductions. It's not necessarily just the price we sell for that we're getting taxed on. We get some deductions from that. So what are some of those deductions? Well, one is we're taxed on our basis in the property. So the basis is what we paid for the property plus improvements we've done to the property,
Right.
which means we need to have receipts when we do work and improvements to the property so that we can prove that difference in the change in basis. Some other deductions that people may not be aware of for capital gains is closing costs. So if you have points, you have prepaid interest, you have property taxes you're paying, those are reduced. So that will save you some on taxes. One of the other is selling cost. So when we're talking about working with a great real estate company like Sequoia Real Estate, we can actually deduct their broker's commissions from our sales price. So that way we're getting some tax savings by using some of this expertise advice as we're selling our property. Other things that are deducted are title insurance, legal fees from people like me, advertising costs, administrative costs, escrow, inspection fees. So there's a lot of that information that you would want to do. The HUD closing statement, that's a great source of getting all your costs when you're doing your tax return. And this is something when you're preparing these, you probably want to make sure you're working with a tax preparer so you're not missing any of these, which might cost you tens of thousands of dollars.
Wow. Love that answer. That was so good. I hope everybody here is just taking notes on the amount of information that Jay is giving us with all of his thanks in the middle of it too. Yes, this guy's good. I love it. So Jay, can someone turn a rental property into a primary residence to take advantage of the tax exclusion?
You know, Maurice, there was something else I wanted to mention really quick.
Ooh, do it. Go for it.
It came up when I was looking at this, and it was home offices.
Oh, okay.
And I was thinking with home offices, especially during COVID, people might be making deductions on their taxes for home offices. That actually impacts the capital gain. So if you're planning on selling, what you want to do is maybe not take those deductions if it's going to cause you a larger capital gain issue. And that's definitely something with Zoom and everybody sitting at home. I want to make sure people are thinking about if they're planning on selling. To get back to your question on can somebody turn a rental property into a primary residence to take advantage of the tax exclusion? They can. One of the things I want to do first is kind of just point it the other way is if you're in your primary residence and then turn it into investment property, that's actually a little freer and you don't have to meet some of the tests. You're still got to be there 2 years, but it's a little easier to do that. When we come back and think about turning investment property into your primary so that you can get these $500,000 exclusion on it, what we're talking about then is non-qualified use. So that's what the investment use would be. So what we have to do is do a pro rata, meaning just the amount of years that it was used for a non-qualified use, meaning not your primary residence, that we would deduct that. But that's deducted from the amount of the actual gain, not necessarily the exclusion. So if you do that reduction and maybe it's 800,000 and that reduces it to 500, well, the exclusion's still 500. So you would still get the exclusion for that gain. So there's different strategies there. What that might do is cause you to stay in the property maybe a year or two longer to maximize your gain because you're changing that pro rata fraction that you're using to figure out your gain. So there's definitely strategies like that. So if you're going back from primary residence to investment property, what you're wanting to do at that point in time is not go that alone. You want to be working with a real estate agent. You want to be working with an attorney, a CPA, a tax preparer, so that they can work through these calculations with you so that you're not paying tens or hundreds of thousands of extra gain.
That makes absolute perfect sense. And I like the breakdown of the numbers for everybody too that's listening. So hopefully, like I said before, taking some notes if you're really interested. This is great information. So then Jay, how does the recently passed Prop 19 affect homeowners?
There's actually a lot of changes that's within that law. So I think voters approved that law without necessarily understanding. They probably understood some of the positive implications of the law, maybe not all the negative implications of the law. So some of the things it's did are positive for homeowners. So we'll hit that first. It used to be that homeowners could transfer to certain counties with a same or lesser market value. They could take their tax assessed value in the property and move it to a new property. So a plus of Prop 19 is that it moved from just being certain counties to anywhere in the state. So now you can sell your property and know that you're not going to have a higher tax basis when you move. And say maybe you've done well and you actually want to go up on a higher value of property or maybe move to a more expensive area, you can actually now move your tax assessed value to a higher property. And then what you're getting is you get the same assessed value and then that difference is reassessed. So you're not, because before you would have had the whole value be reassessed. So you almost had to go into lower property. So that's definitely something we want to keep in mind. This is for anybody that's 55 or older that has severe disabilities, or if a natural disaster like the fires causes you to have to move and maybe you don't want to live where the fires are anymore. So you can do this 3 times now. It used to be only 1. So now you have a little bit more flexibility as you get older. If you want to move to a city and you think you might want to move again, you would do that. The law also allows like reassessments in property for those two. For the primary residence for the children, this is where we get in, and there's some issues as far as parents used to be able to transfer their tax assessed value to their children. So now that they can no longer transfer their tax assessed value to their children without certain conditions, it gets much more expensive for your children to maintain the properties you've had for a while. So used to, you could transfer any amount of your primary residence to your children and they did not have to live in the property and they would keep your tax basis. Now for the primary residence, it's only $1 million of assessed value on just that they can transfer without reassessment. Previously, you could transfer up to $1 million of assessed value in other properties, which if your family had held properties for 20 or 30 years, that may be lots of multiple properties because we're talking about their assessed value. So now that's went away. So on the investment properties, it's going to be reassessed to the current market value for tax purposes. So that could be a big tax burden for children. So when we're thinking of how we plan now, when we're doing estate planning and what we want to leave the children and what they're going to keep when we pass away, we have to think about these issues. We were always thinking about capital gains and whether we wait until death for a step up in basis, or maybe we add children to the property to try to maximize that 250, 500,000 we're talking about earlier.
Right.
There's different strategies we need to do, and because the laws changed, that's why you might want to sit down with somebody like me that's an estate planning attorney, or talk to your real estate agents so that you can kind of talk like, what does it look like if I leave my properties to my children? Are they going to be able to pay for it? Are they going to be able to maintain it? So there are the pluses about if we're older and want to move that allow us to do that now, but also how are our children impacted in the future?
Wow. I love all of this information. There's a lot to think about right now. I bet everybody that hasn't even put a question in the Q&A probably has something that they're thinking about right now going, okay, this is good to think about. And a lot of people already do plan ahead, but a lot of people don't. So that that's great information for all of us to keep in mind.
Well, Maurice, a lot of people on this were not necessarily even aware that this has changed, and it actually took effect really quickly in mid-February.
Wow.
So a lot of people actually didn't have time to do that type of planning.
Right.
The planning for the ones 55 and older who might want to sell, we're just coming up on that date, and I can't. It's sometime in April,
Okay.
early April.
Sometime in April.
That switches, so people could start moving if they want to, and know that their property taxes are not going to change.
Okay. I think you went over, I was going to ask you about if someone wants to pass their property to an heir, what are some considerations now? You blew right. You already gave us that information. So I'm not going to ask that. Instead, I'm going to ask you if a homeowner wanted to downsize, sell their current home and purchase another one, what are some of the strategies to consider from a tax standpoint, Jay?
Well, if they're wanting to sell their home, I think they just have to look at these gain issues,
right?
And they have to think through how long they've been in the property, what's the amount of the actual gain that they're going to get. Definitely the tracking of expenses, especially when we start talking about basis maybe on property we've held for 20 or 30 years, or maybe it's our parents' house and we're helping them plan. Where we go find this information on the improvements we made. So trying to track that down a little. And then, so that will reduce our numbers. And then what we want to think about too is this Prop 19 issue, and kind of using this tax assessed value to make sure that we're carrying over property taxes that are sustainable for us now, because that's what we've been paying. Or if it's not sustainable, maybe we want to go down to a property that's got a lower assessed value so that our property taxes are a little bit less. So I think it's this interplay of the long-term capital gains. Is it worth selling now? Is there a way to include the children on this strategy? And then if not, how do we kind of what's the timing issue for all this? The next speaker's talking on 1031 exchanges. So that's one thing, one strategy that we could use. Another one is LLCs. There's still some planning that can be done, not so much with a primary residence, but when we're talking about investment property, that we could use an entity strategy to make sure that we can pass this tax basis on to our children and then our grandchildren. There's some potentials maybe for this law to get pushed so that it's implemented a little later, and that might allow for some more estate planning around Prop 19 to make sure your children get your tax basis too.
Wow, everybody! I'm putting your hands together. I'm just kidding. I love it. All of the information that you just gave us. Wow. So I have so much to think about. I don't know if anybody else here has so much to think about, but not only, guys, did Jay give us all that information, he also set the stage for our next speaker, which not everybody does. So Jay, do you do a lot of presentations?
I do them for myself. So I have regular workshops, and if you check my website, you can always find another estate planning workshop going on.
Oh, so if you're interested, he does do estate planning workshop, guys. So you'll see him and his personality, which is fantastic, doing workshops. So, get in contact with him. Like I said before, you guys can click on people's profiles to see, catch their LinkedIn, their website, etc. So you'll be able to get in contact with him super easily. Everybody is giving you accolades for your wonderful information. Thank you, Jay, for your time. We really appreciate you taking this out of your day to be here and help us. There's the website dropped in the chat. Jay, look at him. He's a pro, guys. He gives workshops all the time. He knows how to do this. So thank you so much, Jay. I really appreciate you again and all of your charm here. Kelvin says, thanks for all the great information and appreciate you taking the time to share with us. So amazing. Fantastic. Thank you again. This is really valuable information. I hope a lot of people took their notes. And if they have any other questions for Jay, like he did drop his website, you guys can get in touch with him and let him know. So